May the 4th be with you. To all the Star Wars fans celebrating, I certainly got the opportunity this week to celebrate my favorite franchise of all time, Star Wars. Seminal to me growing up. So for everyone that celebrates, hopefully you got in whatever trilogy you like, the original trilogy, the sequel trilogy, and for all those people who love the prequel trilogy, well, there's help out there for you. So please seek medical advice as soon as possible. I feel like I've heard people say that the new generation is very sympathetic to the prequel trilogies, but I can't understand why. Of all of those films, there is one film, really the last film, episode 3, that really holds up. I mean, the rest is a lot of talking heads. It's a lot of discussion. There's a lot of trade war going on in the beginning. And I can't imagine why, when you look at the original trilogy, I feel like it's defined by action sequence after action sequence. It doesn't slow down. And then the prequels just are so dialogue heavy that it kind of reminds me, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the Disney Plus shows. The way that they slow build out of the gate. The first time I watched Mandalorian, one of my first observations about that show was, man, this is taking a while to get to the point. It's really story building. It's world building. It's building a narrative context to why you should care about this subsidiary character off in whatever time he's set in, right? Why do we care about Admiral Akbar's cousin that now has a Disney Plus show? They are slow roll, but I've been hearing that the new generation is a little bit easier on those films than maybe the generation that really experienced them as kids. My generation, I was 10 years old when the first one came out in 1999. And I remember the hype being off the wall for a new Star Wars film. And at that point, in 1999, you're talking about 16 years since there was a new Star Wars thing, which seems unheard of now with the way, the cadence in which Disney treats their Star Wars properties. It seems unheard of to wait 16 years between anything. It's more like 16 minutes before the new Star Wars TV show comes out. There's already more. When I looked at the amount of properties and the proper timeline last night, I got to be honest, there were many that I didn't even know existed. Some I'm assuming they're animated. Some I assume are not really meant for me, i.e. like Skeleton Crew. We talked about Skeleton Crew on this show. Not a show for me. It's kind of a kid's show, right? Family show, family Star Wars show. The Clone Wars, I've heard great things about the Clone Wars. Just can't get into an animated Star Wars series for some reason. And that's probably a me problem. I know that there's very, very good stories. It fills in the back of the lore, but at some point, you got to draw me in quick. So, you're listening to the Powell Not Found podcast. Go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can find us at youtube.com/Powell Not Found. You can also find us at anywhere that you can download podcasts, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. Are there other places that you download podcasts? I don't know. We're probably out there. We've been syndicated. So go ahead and rate and review the show wherever you listen to it and help the show grow. We're also on all social media channels, including Facebook and TikTok and Instagram, Blue Sky. Anywhere that you can see Powell Not Found, you will find our handles out there. So go ahead and interact with our posts and help us grow the show. First up on today's show, and we're going to get back to Star Wars because I have a huge, actually, you know what? Let's get into it right now. One of the cool things about May the 4th is that in the 15 years that people have been celebrating May 4th, May the Force be with you. In the 15 years or so that people have been celebrating this pun, there has been more and more fanfare built into it. You can see the commercials start being more Star Wars based, you know, all the syndications and the partnerships, like the Lego partnerships, the commercials all start becoming Star Wars based, right? They're trying to sell merchandise. But one of the cooler things I got to do this weekend was go to a screening of the original Star Wars in Washington at an old theater called the Miracle Theater, which had been built over in 1909. It was an old vaudevillian theater that I think played vaudevillian shows for 15, 20 years or so until it finally kind of went under. And a couple churches took it over, restored it into its former glory, and has been housing movies and shows and reviews and that kind of stuff. It reminds me of if you've ever been to Richmond, where there's the Bird Theater. It's like that, except less ornate. The Bird has a lot of different... that when you walk into the Bird, it looks like an architectural wonder when you walk into that movie theater. This one kind of looks more standard to what it probably was in the past. A little bit red velvety, old seats. And they were playing Star Wars. And the best part about that was not only was it fit within the theme, right? But also the prices were so low, right? It was $8 to get into a show, right? Great. Amazing. To get a popcorn and a soda and a candy, $15. I walked out of there, not breaking the bank like you do at Regal or AMC, right? It doesn't feel like it's a burden to go see an old film. And one of the things I used to love and enjoy was as a kid going to like a dollar movie or seeing those independent movie theaters that would have a kind of second wind films or second circuit films that had already been in theaters, but if you missed it in theaters, you could see it again. And it was a low admission. You knew you weren't seeing the best of the best. They were taking home all of the money, essentially, because they weren't paying top dollar to show their film. And so you'd get a second chance to see it in theaters. And over the last couple months, especially seeing the Oscars, Conan did a huge funny bit about going to see movies in the theater, a comedy bit from the Oscars. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. Conan's in the news again because he was awarded that Mark Twain Prize. That's also on Netflix, premiering today. But they make a big deal about seeing films in theaters. And I had never gotten the opportunity to see Star Wars in films. It was obviously from 1977. They had re-released the trilogy a couple times. I mean, many times over the years. One of them most notably was when the prequels came out. They re-released the original trilogy, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. They re-released it so people could see it in theaters. I was 10 years old at the time, didn't control the budget of my family at 10. I know, what a travesty. But, ended up seeing Empire in theaters. And that's where really my love of Star Wars kind of came from, was seeing that show with people in a big auditorium. Seeing A New Hope was familiar to me. It felt like it was on theme. It was a fun thing to go to. But one of the striking things seeing that film is you realize, because you've seen that show 1,000 times on television syndicated, when you see it with a whole bunch of people, not only do you get the vibe of a bunch of nerds coming together watching this film again, because people were whooping and hollering and they were clapping when Harrison Ford came on screen, when Luke said his first line about going to Tashi Station to get power converters, people were laughing at it. These cultural memes that have developed from the Star Wars franchise were being kind of played out in the audience. It added an energy to the film. This is a film I have seen hundreds of times. And last night was one of the best times I have seen it. There is nothing more powerful than watching a Star Wars film in a theater, and when the Death Star blows up, the Death Star is going to blow up. But hearing everybody applaud and cheer as if we all did something by watching it happen is fun. It reminds you of why the theater is important for it to survive. Why seeing it at home, you're not going to get that visceral reaction that you would sitting in a theater. Chomping on popcorn, eating some M&Ms. You're not going to get the same vibe. You also start realizing how important some of these characters are. Like C-3PO to me was always a funny. I liked his nervous energy. but I gravitated towards other characters as a kid and as an adult. I remember having an R2-D2 action figure when I was younger, and that was like one of my favorite action figures. But seeing it in a theater, you start realizing how much of a comic relief C-3PO is. Lines that seem throwaway all of a sudden become very punctuated when you're seeing it amongst the masses. And so for the first time, it really swayed my opinion about the state of movie theaters and why they should exist. Because for years, I grew up going to the movies. That was a very typical thing. It continues to be a very typical thing in my life. Seeing films is very important. It's a way to escape. But as we've started to transition, especially after the pandemic, into an on-demand society, when theaters really seemed like they were on the brink, it really made me think about, why do we need to go spend, nearing $50, $60 to go see something amongst people? Last night was an example of why you need to see things with people. It's the energy, it's the vibe. Not all films are going to have this. I remember seeing Chicago and New York a long, long time ago when I was a kid. It had that same energy and vibe that last night it had. So if you get the opportunity, support independent theaters. They are some of the more unique experiences that you're going to have. I know Alamo was doing this before. Alamo was just purchased by Sony. But as an independent theater, they did a good job about bringing independent and independent films, but also bringing back old films for screenings and seeing it in theaters all the time. If you do have an old theater in your neighborhood, go support it. Go to a show. You may not have that opportunity again, especially with the advent of all these multiplexes like your Regal, like your AMC. Something about a one-house movie theater is just a charming atmosphere that I think we lack right now. So it was a crazy experience. You also forget how short that film is. You blink and you miss a couple different things. It also reminded me too, because I've been watching Andor alongside Andor season 1. Andor season 2 is coming out episodically now on Disney Plus, but it also reminded me of how fast-paced Star Wars as a trilogy was and how different the TV shows are now. Andor is I haven't finished it yet, so I don't want to give like final thoughts on Andor. I want to kind of catch up so that I'm with everybody on season 2. But like other shows and like other Star Wars shows that I've mentioned on the show, Andor takes a while to really rev its engines to get something to happen. And then when something happens, it's very punctuated. And I'm about 7 episodes in when a heist has occurred. And it appears that we have hit a pivot point in Andor that it seems like it's going to turn into a totally different TV show. And I don't know whether that is the point where everyone says it starts getting good, it starts really becoming one of the best shows that I've seen. Because when Andor first came out, I seem to remember people saying that it was very slow. It took a long time to get into. But that seems to be the trend with all these TV shows with a Star Wars pace. It's so different from the films. And maybe that's just because the films only have 2 hours, 2.5 hours, max to really tell you the whole story. They don't have the room to really show you every bit and bob that they want to show you, like a TV series that has 8 hours, 7 or 8 hours to play with. So I'm curious to compare and to finish this and really give proper thoughts on Andor, because they really go deep into character development in a way that I'm not sure is actually interesting. There are character arcs that listen, when I watch Star Wars, I don't ever think that I'm going to see the inner workings of the Imperial force and middle management at its at its function. I don't think I'm ever going to feel the emotional pain of someone who's been terminated from the Imperial forces, from middle management at best. You want to see the top players in Star Wars. You want to see the Emperor. You want to see Luke, right? You want to see Han, right? You want to see the people that are really making an impact. Andor is not that. Andor, I feel like you really see the players on the ground, and you really go deep into the players on the ground, and you're so far away from the heart of the rebellion that you start to wonder, was this a good idea? And so right now, I'm very, very torn on how much I like getting this deep into the Star Wars lore. At this point, people say it's great, but it takes a while to keep on going. And when you have this choice in your head about when you're sitting down and you're going to watch something, do you want it just to, get to the point right away? Or do you want it to kind of really, really show you the inner workings? Like, at what point is it fan service versus interesting? Because a mega fan's going to want to know every bit and bob of that world. They're going to want to see every little detail developed. But I think by doing that, you sacrifice a little bit of interest because you don't need to show all those moments to tell a narrative story. But right now, 7 episodes of 12 deep. I feel like you should be able to pass judgment on a television show 7 episodes in, but so much of this stuff has been context and world building for the story that I don't think it's appropriate right now to pass judgment on season 1 just yet. But if you're going to watch Andor, just know, of all of the shows on Disney Plus, this is probably the slowest one to start, compared to Book of Boba Fett, compared to Mandalorian, and the like. So, with that, let's transition hard. I do want to say that comparatively, next to the show that we're going to talk about at the end of the show, the 4 seasons, drastically different from Andor. It hits you right away and doesn't stop pulling punches, and I appreciate it for it. It seems short, sweet, well-conceived, and it leaves me with a totally different feeling. I also like to say, too, that I still like Andor, right? It's interesting. It's a fun story when things start happening, it's a fun story to follow. And they do a great job production-wise of putting you in that world and making you realize that you're seeing these like lower strata of Imperial forces that are not as good as the top level, the top ranked people that we're used to seeing all the time, right? We're not seeing this well-oiled machine. We're seeing the ignored strata of management that the Imperials have not looked at for years, and nor do they probably care, right? They make that very clear, and they do a great job acting it. I think Diego Luna in it, he is playing his same Cassian from Rogue One. We know where the story is going. It's very like Better Call Saul in that way, where we know it's a fated story. The acting is great in it, as always. It's not, they don't pull any punches. The guy from The Bear is in it. It's well acted. And I think this might be a case of great acting taking a bad script and making it tolerable. But it just takes a little bit too long to develop. When things start happening, it is a great piece of Star Wars production. It's a great Star Wars production. When things are happening and developing and the story is moving forward. When the story is not moving forward, it moves very slow. It is like Whiplash in that way, where it's going 60 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour down a highway, and then coming to a complete stop and causing a pileup. Like that is the pacing of Andor so far. So hopefully, I seem to be at a pivot point where everything seems to change. It does appear, it feels like for the viewer that it's almost like the production team took a hard stop and said, we have to change the pacing of the show. And so let's wrap this up, this first part, and now get into the second part of the show. It feels like it's almost like it should have been 1 season and 2 seasons split at seven episodes, because they feel like they're going to be very thematically different. So, but that is your Star Wars section of the day. May the 4th be with you. Let's talk a little bit about the Yankees when we come back. We'll be right back.